If you've ever felt the only way to make it in music is to go viral, get signed, or become a household name, I don't blame you, because that's the version of success we've seen since the beginning of time. Maybe not the viral part, but you get it. Today, I'm gonna help you see there's more than one way to become a working professional in music. This is the first video in my self-made songwriter series where we will be talking to real artists who have built full-time careers without following that traditional industry playbook. And we might talk to a few who have as well. When I say artist, I'm using that word lightly. I mean artists, songwriters, producers, everybody in the music industry umbrella who this can apply to. And if we haven't met yet, I'm Breanamarin, a singer-songwriter who built a full-time music career recording music in my home studio. I've licensed hundreds of hooks to indie artists all across the internet, and some of my songs have been recorded and performed by characters on major television shows. Now I help other songwriters write better, sound better, and even earn more income from the music that's just been collecting dust on their hard drive, starting exactly where they are with what they already have. In this episode, I sat down with Dreamlife, a producer who went from working in cafes, cold calling vacation packages, to building a six-figure brand, selling beats online, launching Sample Lab, and landing placements with artists like Summer Walker, Wiz Khalifa, Logic, Russ, Kodak Black, and Kevin Gates, to name a few. Whether you're a songwriter, producer, or indie artist, this conversation is filled with insights and strategies that you can learn from and start using today. As you listen, keep in mind that some of the tools and resources Dreamlife might mention may not be around anymore, but that doesn't make the lesson any less valuable. Just remember that even though the platform might change, in most cases, the strategy still works. Think about how you can flip these methods and apply them to your specific goals and your specific needs. Before music became your main thing, what was your life actually like? Were you in school, working other jobs? Like what did the early days look like?
Yeah, it was kind of just pretty regular. I went to college and school for music tech. We do it a bit different in England. So we go to college for a few years, which is like free, so it's super dope. And then I went to university after that. And I actually ended up dropping out of uni just because I felt like I'd learned everything I needed to know. And I just knew I wanted to make beats. And I was just like, why am I here? So I dropped out, and it really didn't go to plan for me when I dropped out. Like I was trying to sell beats online and I couldn't figure it out. And so I didn't really make any sales. That was way back in the day. I think I was on a website called Rock Battle, and there was a couple of guys that were making, Rock Battle. Yeah. I wasn't under the name Dreamlife, but there was a couple of guys that were doing really well on it. And it kind of didn't work out. And then I think I kind of took a gap year and I went to Mexico for a year, and I was still making beats and doing my thing. And then I came back to England and I tried to finish uni, and I was trying to get motivated to finish like where I kind of dropped out, and I just couldn't get there. I was just like, no, this isn't working for me. And then I ended up working in a cafe in London, like a quite big cafe called Pret. There's like a Pret on every corner in London, and I really enjoyed it. I worked there for like 6 months and just met loads of people from loads of different cultures and places. Like London's super culture in that respect, so I enjoyed that. And I basically was saving up money to go traveling, and I ended up saving up my little money, and then I flew, and the first place I flew to was Panama, which is where I am right now. And I ended up in Panama, and I was like, okay, I actually had like a whole trip planned, but then I didn't want to leave Panama, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna stay here. And then some guy that I met randomly offered me a job, and so I worked with him at an agency. Yeah, I was selling vacations to Panama.
No, you didn't. Like timeshares?
Not timeshares, like they were like these itineraries like we'd put together with like the hotels. So you'd be in the city for a few days, and then you go to the beach, and like we set it all up with transport and stuff like that. I can't even remember the sales pitch now anyway, but I was like calling people in the States and trying to sell these vacations. It was super fun. The company kind of fizzled out a little bit, and then I was in a situation where I was making beats the whole time, but like I wasn't really making a living off them at that point. And so it was kind of just working a regular job, doing my thing. And yeah, at some point I kind of just decided to take it seriously and went from there.
Was it BeatStars or was this still Rock Battle?
This was actually SoundClick.
Yeah, I forgot you were on Sound. Yeah. And like, how was that?
SoundClick was the game changer for me in terms of like actually starting to make a living off selling beats. I wasn't even near to being like in the first first group of producers on the SoundClick. I was probably like the second or third wave, but it was still popping enough. Whereas if you got a beat on the like in the top charts, like in the top 10, you'd lease that out like loads of times, like hundreds of times guaranteed. And basically what we used to do was you'd have to buy these banner ads, and it was as simple as like if you spent enough on these banner ads, you'd pretty much be guaranteed to get into the top 10.
Really?
And so there was this a whole system. There's probably like 20 of us that were doing this at the same time. And like basically, right, you'd wait till midnight and then you'd spend $140 on banner ad, and you could only buy them $10 at a time. So you had to like do the transaction 10 times, you know, if you wanted to spend $100. And it was all done on impressions. So when I figured that out, and I just figured out like I could make a beat, and if I really like the beat, I'm just gonna like spend $100 making it sure it gets into the top 10, and then I'd probably make like $500 in a day off that beat. So I'd spend like $100, but I'd get back 500. And that's when things really started clicking for me. So I did that for a couple of years, and I was uploading to YouTube around the same time as well. And I wasn't on BeatStars to begin with. I was actually on, it was called My Flash Store at the time.
My Flash Store?
Yeah, so now it's Airbit. And one day Abe actually hit me up and he was like, come over to BeatStars. And so I did, and that was a move as well. So I was kind of like on like a couple of different platforms.
So when you first started selling beats, did you have some kind of strategy in mind, or did you just try a bunch of things and saw what worked? And then what was the process?
I didn't have any strategies in mind at all. I also feel like at that point when I was doing it, like it wasn't as talked about either. Like there wasn't like loads of these creators and influencers on YouTube like there is now that will like tell you how to set up like a type beat channel. Like that just didn't exist. There was a couple of guys that were doing it, and you really had to figure out things for yourself. There was a lot of gatekeeping. You know, I mean, we were guilty of doing that with the SoundClick banner thing as well, so I can't really moan about it. But I didn't really have a strong business mind, to be honest with you, to begin with. I was just a guy that liked making beats and I was trying to figure out how I can make a living off it. With my current mindset, if I went back now, I'm sure I'd be way further along, just because I understand the business a lot more now. You know, I was just a kid. You know, I was like probably like late 20s at the time when I was doing all that. So I really didn't have any idea of like, you know, the business side of things at all.
I mean, what made your brain go to SoundClick? Like, was there like a catalyst, or were you like searching for things?
I must have seen something. Like I must have seen like a YouTube video, or I couldn't tell you, honestly. I couldn't tell you right now why. I might have spoken to someone like about it, and they might have said, try SoundClick. Like it could have been something as small as that, but I can't remember an exact time where I was like, all right, let's do SoundClick.
Do you think that, like, would you say that was your first experience making money with music, or did you do something prior to that where you made your first dollar?
Yeah, so I actually sold quite a lot of beats on MySpace as well, like way back in the day, way back.
Really? Was it licenses, or were you just selling them outright?
I didn't even know leasing beats existed at that point, so it was literally selling them outright, and like with just like no paperwork, no nothing. I was probably like 18 or 19 at the time. I'm thinking I couldn't have an exact timeline, but so I was selling beats exclusively. And then there was another way I was selling beats back in the day. And there was like this thing called PMP, which was like, at the time, it was billed as a way to get your music in front of major artists. So they had this website where they'd have like the opportunities that you could submit. Okay. And some of the opportunities were just like independent artists that were like looking to buy beats.
Okay. Oh, you got your customers on MySpace?
No. So MySpace was way before. So later on, MySpace kind of ran its course. Tom sold it, or whatever his name was. PMP would have these things where it would be like an independent. I have $500 a beat budget, submit, and I would just be submitting to that and just selling loads of beats.
Literally never heard of that.
I don't know if it's around anymore. It probably at the time it was super dope as well. In terms of just like me being this from England and like not being able to connect with anyone, and there was a website where I could submit beats directly to independent artists that actually had a budget. I was like, this is so cool. But that didn't last very long. I can't remember what happened with that in the end, but yeah. So after that, I kind of just took a massive break off music.
So before we jump into the next section, I want to point out some important lessons and strategies that we can take from this part of the conversation. 1, he didn't wait to be discovered. He used ads to create visibility. He had a catalog of music that was already ready to be used. He created a marketing plan and then executed on it immediately and repeatedly. All of the new paid traffic created income for him. 2, he spent money to make money. Dreamlife said he was spending about $140 on banner ads and getting back about $500 per day. I also wanted to clarify how often he was spending this $140 a day. So I shot him a text and this is what he said.
Cool, so it was every day and it had to be just after midnight, otherwise it would be a complete waste of time and you wouldn't get in the top 10.
And lesson 3, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Although he was making beats and all of his musical products by himself, he reached out to his competitors and figured out a good strategy to use on the platform, and they all grew together. By collaborating with other producers on the platform, they figured out what was working and used that shared knowledge to grow faster and earn more income. There's a ton of mystery around publishing deals. How did you actually land your first publishing deal? How did it pan out? Is it something you would do again? Like, was it the best thing or worst thing?
I would say I've only ever had one publishing deal, and it was good and bad at the same time. I'll tell you why it was good. There's probably more good than bad, to be honest with you. So at the time, this is when I was uploading beats to SoundClick, and a producer manager from Atlanta hit me up and he was like, really like your beats. Can you just send us some stuff that's like not on the site or whatever? So I had like just a massive catalog of beats that I had sent out or uploaded. So I started sending this guy beats, and he was working with a producer at the time from Atlanta called Go Grizzly. And I just started working with Go Grizzly personally. At the time, like my drums just weren't really up to scratch. Like in terms of like, you know, the modern sound, I've always been a bit more of a boom bap producer, but my melodies were. This is kind of what the manager was getting at. He was like, you know, your melodies are what we're looking for here. So I would send like full beats, and then they'd be like, send the stems, and they'd completely redo the drums, like completely a whole different thing. And the beats were incredible. Go Grizzly's an incredible producer. So one of the beats we made ended up getting on Kevin Gates' project, and that's when they were like, all right, let's do this publishing thing. So I signed with those guys, and off the back of that, ended up getting 4 or 5 major placements where I was sending stuff to Grizz and they were getting this stuff placed. So in terms of like that, it was super cool to have that publishing deal. I'm not sure like that kind of thing happens as much anymore, because I know like things are a lot more saturated now, but back in the day it was obviously an absolute blessing. What I didn't like about it so much was the creative freedom aspect of it. I feel like I had to make a very particular type of beat all the time, which I wasn't the biggest fan of making. Like you know, for me, making beats is just about fun, and it got to a point where I stopped having fun with it. It really felt like a job. It felt like I was going back to a 9 till 5, and that's when I actually said, you know, I don't want to do it anymore. Not quit music, but just the whole publishing thing. And I actually sort of got out of that publishing deal because of that, and they kind of understood, you know, they knew my background musically, and basically that's kind of how it ended. And ever since then I've kind of had my own publishing thing going on, you know, just pub admin.
Okay, that's cool. So it really wasn't like a horror story. You went down that avenue and just kind of realized like, this is not the vibe for me.
I would actually say it was the opposite from horror story. It was actually pretty incredible, to be honest with you.
I love
in terms of like what it added to my life as a creator, it was incredible. And another thing that I really got a lot out of with the publishing deal was actually going up to visit Grizz in the studio in person. Like when I think back on it now, like those were like, I learned so much from those sessions. So it was like a good experience overall, I would say.
Oh, I love that. Do you think your drums improved after you had that publishing experience?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just didn't have many producers around me growing up. Like, you know, I'm from a smallish town in southern England. Like there's not many people making beats, and especially like trap music and stuff like that. Like there really wasn't much of that going on. So I really had to learn that stuff. Even now, like it's definitely one of my sort of weaker spots.
I would not have
trap drums.
Okay, you know? Traps. I'm like, sometimes your drums are my favorite part.
Thank you. Yeah, boom bap. Yeah, I mean, and all that. It's the hip hop, but yeah, trap's kind of what I had to really learn. And you know, some of the placements, like for example, Kodak Black was a placement. Kevin Gates, as I said, this is all like really heavily influenced trap stuff, and I love it. I really love that type of music. It wasn't like a massive chore, but there got to a point where we were having to make very particular music that wasn't trap, by the way, that was just like not really my thing. It would be like, working with specific samples that they flipped and just stuff like that, where I was just like felt so boxed in creatively, I kind of lost interest in it.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
One thing I did learn though during that time was just like repetition is absolute key. Like, these guys at the highest level make so many beats. You probably know from like writing hooks, like those guys at that top level, they're literally in the studio and they're writing like 20 hooks a day. Even if like 18 of them are throwaways, they're part of the process of becoming a better writer. So I kind of didn't know that before I went through that process. I'd never really gone, right, I'm just going to make 5 beats a day. Like, I don't care if they're good or bad. I'm just going to go through the process. And that's honestly something I've done ever since. Like, if I'm making samples if I'm making a sample pack, I find like I have to get back into the swing of it. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to make 5 samples a day. I'll literally for 2 or 3 months make 5 samples a day and then pick the ones that I really like.
Will you spend all day doing it, or do you have like a time restraint around it?
No, I do have a time restraint. So basically, I only work on my creative stuff in the morning. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't like this, because I wish I could only do creative stuff. But like, I have loads of business stuff I have to do. If you know how that works. So for me, it's like I'll wake up at like 7 a.m. I'll have breakfast with my family, and then from 8 till 12, I'll just do beats or samples, hit the gym, and then I have to leave the house at some point. Like, I can't be in the house all day. So I'm normally like going to the gym and having lunch. That's 2 hours right there. And then from like 2 till 5 or 2 till 6, it's just business.
That makes sense.
I'd love to get to a point where I can just not do the business stuff.
I've been trying to, I have to like physically think and carve time to create. Otherwise, I can have like several days or weeks go by where there's been no songs that we're sang.
Man, I'm going to be honest with you. That is one of the biggest challenges of being a creative in 2025, is the fact that you can't just be a creative.
Yeah.
Like, you have to do the business stuff, and you have to also study and know what you're doing with the business stuff. You can't just say, okay, well, for the next 3 hours, I'm going to do business. Like, what is that? Is that Facebook ads? Is that launching a new product? Is that, or launching a new website? Or it's really like crazy how much I've had to like say, okay, music, I love you, but like, for me to love you properly, I need to focus on this guy.
I feel like that's maturity too.
I mean, it is like, when you have mouths to feed, or when you have certain people that are relying on you to make money off your music, not just yourself, then it really becomes like, okay, I can't like mess around and make beats all day. Like, I'd love to do that, but I literally have to make sure this stuff is working.
Okay, so there's 3 things that I want to point out from that part of the conversation that would be really helpful for you guys to keep in mind. One is that he got his publishing deal by showing up and making himself discoverable. So for those of you who were curious if it was mandatory to move to a city that's a music hub like Atlanta, LA, Nashville, New York, or anywhere else in the world that is considered a music hub, this is proof that you don't have to do that. All he had was his computer, a Wi-Fi connection, and his music, and he made himself known to the rest of the world. He attracted the attention he needed to create opportunities. Even if it wasn't millions of followers, it was the attention of one person who was able to offer him a publishing deal and later lead him to placements and credits that helped build his resume. The second thing that I noticed and wanted to point out is that yes, he got the publishing deal, which is great, and he lived through the experience. Although on one hand, it was bringing him new opportunities, money, and growth musically, on the other hand, he was feeling boxed in creatively. Like, all the music he was making was only through somebody else's vision. It was turning music into a 9-to-5 job for him. And I actually talked about this in my last video. And if you haven't watched it yet, I'll drop a link in the description box as well as up here. In that video, we discussed getting very clear on your goals and your end game, and then having the courage to pivot. If you get to the point where you finally reach those goals, only to realize it's not what you thought it would be. Now, Dreamlife could have stayed and kept racking up placements and credits and royalties, but now that he had had the hands-on experience, he lived the life of a published producer, he was very clear that this life wasn't for him. So he got what he needed and he used it as a vehicle, and then pivoted into a lane that felt more aligned with his in-game goals. The third thing I want to point out is not only was he self-aware, he leaned into collaboration and guidance. Dreamlife knew melodies were not his strength. He was way more skilled in drums. So instead of giving up or releasing songs with crappy melodies, he partnered with somebody who was better at melodies than he was at the time. And now he's an expert at melodies and drum loops. He learned just by being in the room. I'm trying to understand your landscape of like generating income. Are you still focusing on BeatStars? You also have your business Sample Lab. Then you're also just a producer as well, like getting placements and doing all kinds of other things musically. Like, how does all of that work? And like, what's your primary focus?
Yeah, it's really a lot of different income streams that attribute to sort of what I take home on a monthly basis. And yeah, it's literally all the things you mentioned. It's BeatStars, it's selling beats, selling exclusives, selling samples, placements, publishing. I'm on BeatStars publishing, and and then we've got the pro stuff like BMI. I'm on a site called TrackLib, which does really well for samples, so that's a blessing as well. And then I would say like my main thing, like the thing that I spend the most time on, is the Sample Lab, which is basically a website that is dedicated to selling samples and drum loops mainly.
I loved when I saw you creating the Sample Lab, and I was just always curious, like, was that in game, or did something happen where you were like, I think I'm gonna do XYZ? And then what was the process of getting that off the ground?
I mean, you probably know from working with me all the years, like I really like sampling. Like as a producer, I've just always really liked sampling. And so back in the day, to do that without getting sued, not using actual records, I used to like use these sample packs because I felt like I could kind of get a similar vibe and I could do it legally and have a license to put this music out. And I got so deep into like using samples and what I felt like made a good sample pack on, the stuff I literally spending thousands of dollars, by the way, on sample packs.
Really? Like money or like total in a year?
Like total, just like an insane amount of money went onto sample packs. And so I feel like it just put me in a position where I was just like, you know what, I kind of want to contribute to this landscape. I feel like I have something to say here. And I went to New York and linked up with a bunch of jazz musicians, and I actually work with a few of them still even now. Shout out to Joey D Keys. And we just made like a sample pack. Basically, we looked into the studio, we had loads of vintage gear, and we made a sample pack. And that was basically like the start of the Sample Lab, was me putting my own stuff out, and it was doing well. The packs are selling, and I think it's because the beat maker Dreamlife had some traction, so people were buying the sample packs off that. But then when the pandemic hit, that's when I was just like, okay, how can we really turn this into like a proper business where it's not just like relying on me to make samples for it? Because like if I have a week where I don't want to like make samples or I want to chill, like the sales go down, so it doesn't really have legs. So I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna start like putting my friend like producer sample packs out. So I started working with a good friend of mine now called Memory, who's a guitarist, and he was making these insane sample packs. So I was like, okay, Jason, let me put your stuff out. We'll do even splits and I'll market it for you, and I'll send you some money at the end of every month based on the sales. So we started with him, and then we just started working with like 4 or 5 different producers and built this business where we were marketing these sample packs. And I think like the biggest thing for me with the Sample Lab is it's always been curated. It's never just like, oh yeah, just like put up whatever, or just put that out. Yeah, it'll be all right. No, it's always been stuff where I've been like, okay, I like this. I'd sample this. So this is what's going to go on the site. And we've kind of maintained that over all these years. And, we even hire a bunch of people now. There's a bunch of people working for the Sample Lab, but it's always me that's kind of like still curating the sample packs. So yeah, that's kind of how it grew. And I feel like we got really lucky with a lot of the guys that we started working with early on, that they were just incredible. Like, because if it was like a different situation where the producers was good, like the stuff they were making wasn't quite as amazing as it was, then it might have not had the legs that it did.
Right. Yeah, because I definitely, when I think of Sample Lab and I think of Dreamlife, there's a very specific aesthetic and like sonic aesthetic that goes with it, and I definitely think that's like a huge part of it.
Right, I think so. Yeah, I mean, and that's just that. I don't know how this is going to come across, but it's just natural as well. It's just like a natural aesthetic that I like. So
Yeah.
that's gonna be how that's kind of how my beats sound as well, and so that's how my
Yeah,
website.
absolutely. I mean, and sometimes that's all it is just a little bit of yourself that makes something special and stand out amongst everything. I was curious to know, how did you start to build a customer base for Sample Lab? Is it something that you used the success of Dreamlife, or did you have like a whole different strategy as far as marketing goes?
I think initially it was the people that are interested in Dreamlife. It was like making a drum kit, because I used to get asked all the time, when are you going to make a drum kit? So that was one of the initial products I did. It was kind of just something to fill a gap in the market. It wasn't like a long-term play, like I'm going to start making drum kits. After we started working with other producers, we just started going ham with the Facebook marketing. Like we basically figured out, like if we use Facebook marketing the right way, like we can 5x our investment on Facebook marketing with these sample packs. So that is how the Sample Lab grew so quickly, because we were spending a lot of money on Facebook ads. We still do.
Why Facebook over like YouTube or Instagram or any other avenue?
Okay, so when I say Facebook, it's like Meta, so it's like Instagram as well. So it's basically Facebook and Instagram. YouTube, I haven't really tried it fully, but because Facebook and Instagram have been so solid for me, I'm kind of like, I've just been focused on that, to be honest with you. But I know TikTok's another one where we've never done marketing, but I think we've got like 85,000 followers on there just because we post our stuff and, dig it and follow the account. But yeah, in terms of marketing, we haven't done much on there either.
Yeah, that's so cool that you grew on TikTok. And do you post like different types of like content, or did you find what works and you just post a lot of that?
Yeah, we did that. I mean, we should have posted a lot of content. Sometimes we're kind of light on the ground because it's me and two other guys. We can't always get to everything we want to get to. So content's one of those things where we've always had a funny relationship with it. I don't do content for my own stuff, and so we don't do that much for the Sample Lab either. But the content we were doing worked really well. We would literally be uploading samples and using a video of like an old record player or old tape player, and then just meshing them together and uploading them and some of these videos have millions of views, and just people like trying to guess where the drums are from and stuff like that, and like oh, it's from Rihanna's song, and it's like, no, this is like, we made this. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. TikTok's super like crazy because I've never seen any of our stuff just go so crazy so quickly as it did on TikTok. It was insane.
And does that spill over into like sales and customers for you?
It did to traffic, but I found that traffic wasn't as strong as like the paid traffic Facebook, which kind of makes sense, right? It's
more
completely
targeted.
Organic. Facebook's much more targeted, but it's just, it's just fun to see. And it's also nice that it shows that the samples and the drum loops are like good enough for people to get excited about, and give us a follow. So overall, it's kind of a nice metric to be able to see that people are actually interested in the product.
Yeah. How would you say marketing yourself as a producer who's licensing beats or whatever else you're doing to generate income as a producer, how would you say it's different than marketing your brand that you built? Or are they not different at all?
I don't think they're different. I think if you're an artist or a producer, you kind of need to be your own brand, just like you are. When you put products out, it's kind of like, okay, Brianna made this, but it's also a brand, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think like if you are an artist, you do need to think of yourself as a brand. So I don't think it's very different at all, to be honest with you.
So this is what it actually looks like to be a full-time professional in music. It's not always about chasing placements or getting your one shot to be discovered. It's about building vehicles for yourself that will keep income flowing. And that's exactly what Dreamlife did. He took what he was good at and turned it into multiple streams of income that he and his family could rely on. So there were tons of things in that segment of the conversation that we could talk about, but I'm going to recap 3 that stood out to me. 1, he turned his best skills into a product. He mentioned how he loves making samples and sampling things, and lo and behold, he started selling sample packs, and then he built an entire brand around that idea. And it wasn't just any old sample pack. There was an aesthetic and a theme that really represents who he is as a creator, and he uses that to guide all all the decisions in his Sample Lab brand. It's very curated and very intentional. He didn't try to do everything by himself. He flew all the way to New York from Panama to hire other producers and musicians that could help contribute to his growing sample library. The ultimate way to guarantee yourself some income is building your own platform, which is exactly what he did with the Sample Lab. Instead of relying on other marketplaces that he's used in the past, keep in mind, he still uses, but his biggest focus and source of income is now the business that he's created. As you go through your musical journey, start keeping in mind the things that you are really good at or the things that people are constantly coming to you for, and maybe there's a business you can build somewhere hidden in that data. The third thing that stood out to me is how he used Facebook ads to grow the Sample Lab. So if you really believe in your product or whatever it is you're working on, don't be afraid to invest in it and run ads and attract the eyeballs to your business. Is there any advice that you would offer to someone who is a creative and wants to transition into owning their own business?
Yeah, I would say you have to spend money on ads. Like, there's kind of a weird stigma with Facebook ads and Instagram ads, like where people feel like they're gonna get ripped off, or they don't initially get the results that they thought they'd get, so it must not work. But with Facebook particularly, and when I say Facebook, that encompasses Instagram as well.
Umbrella.
Yeah, Meta. You need to first build an audience in Meta for it to start working. And in order to do that, it's unfortunate that there's no other way to do it. You have to spend money.
Yeah.
It's kind of like paying off Meta up front. All right, guys, we really want business. We don't have an audience at all. So we need to kind of slow grind you for you to give us an audience. So $20 a day, $30 a day, $40 a day, no sales. But after 2 or 3, if you're doing the right things, then you will start to get sales very slowly, but a lot of people think that, okay, I have a product, I'm going to give Meta $20 for it to market, and I'm going to make like a 5x on the first time I've ever given them $20. Like, it just doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, I wish it did. And it kind of used to, but it doesn't anymore. So I would say, if I was an independent artist or a producer trying to sell a product, it would be to really learn the ins and outs of Meta and be patient with it. And also, like, put a budget aside, like say, okay, this month I'm going to spend $500. It doesn't matter what happens. If I don't make one sale, I'm going to spend $500 on Meta this month. And you kind of do that over the course of several months. And I know it sounds like a lot. It doesn't have to be $500. It could be, it could be whatever money you want to put into it. But building that sort of audience in Meta is just going to make you so much more money in the long run.
Okay. And how do you go about figuring out the ad? So once you decide, okay, I'm committed to advertising on Meta or whatever avenue I'm going to use, how do you go about saying this piece of content or whatever it is that's going to be my actual ad is the one that I'm going to spend the $500 to blast to the world?
Okay, so it's kind of like if you make a beat you really like, or if you write a hook where you're like, yeah, this one's kind of like a little bit better than the rest. I feel like it's the same with ads as well. Like I make a lot of the ad creative, and so I kind of know when I've made some ad creative that's kind of like a little bit better than the other stuff. And usually that correlates to more sales, literally just kind of knowing that this looks a bit better or this sounds a bit better than the other stuff. So it's kind of a little bit on instinct to begin with.
Okay.
And then testing,
Yeah, because I was going to say, you can also see the results of what you've done.
Yeah. What's crazy is sometimes the thing that you think is going to really do well doesn't. And the thing that you were kind of like in two minds about is the one. So
I feel like that's always the case with me, at least. There's always something that I'm like, I hate that. And it's like the biggest thing.
Yeah, I feel you, but I feel like that's why you have to test. It's weird because you have to tell people go with your gut instinct, right? You have to, right? But at the same time, it's kind of like go with your gut instinct, but be open to being wrong about it, and then changing your mind and going a different direction.
Okay, I want to shift to AI, the controversial.
Okay, excellent.
First, do you think AI is a threat to you as a producer, or is it an opportunity for you as a producer? Maybe it's both. I don't know your life, but whatever it
Okay,
is.
So first of all, I do think it's a threat. I'm not against AI, by the way. I use AI, not really that for my own music, but like I use ChatGPT, like else does, you know. So I think it's a threat in general, just because, all right, let me break it down. So let's use Suno for an example, okay?
Okay.
It's probably one of the biggest.
Explain what it is for people who may not.
Okay, so it's generative AI. So basically what it's doing is it's generating music from prompts. It's a bit misleading to say it generates, because I'm not sure it actually builds anything 100% from scratch. You know, like how ChatGPT like takes information from different places and gives you the info. That information already exists. There is a lot more of a gray area with like music and generative AI, and it's the same with Midjourney with visual arts. But so my thing is this, with Zuno, for example, what I don't like about it is I want to know where they got all that music from that they used to train the AI.
Yeah.
And they've built an absolutely huge company off the back of that music, and the people that contributed to that never really got paid, and in many cases didn't even know that they were part of it. So that's my problem. So if there is a way in the future where these companies can be transparent and they can sign deals with these publishing companies for big catalogs of music, and these guys get paid for it, you know, the estates of these incredible musicians that have passed away, they can start getting fairly compensated for their stuff getting scraped off the internet and put into a machine learning program, then I would feel a lot better about it. But the fact that we have no idea whatsoever what's taken, and then that translates to when you put a prompt into Suno, it's like, what am I actually hearing here? I don't think from a copyright perspective, there's very few instances where it like spits out a melody that you would have heard before. But like from a moral standpoint, like I wouldn't just be able to go, okay, let me make a sample, let me put a prompt into Suno, and then whatever it gives me, I'm going to use that. Like, because I just don't know who was really involved in making that. It's just the lack of transparency like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think AI is interesting. I think some tools are really awesome, but I do think there's a concern with like our rights and our likeness and just certain things that are able to kind of just be used without any kind of guidelines or permissions. But
yeah, I mean, to put it plainly, unless they did have agreements in place with these huge companies that own loads of licenses for music, which I'm not sure, you know, honestly, then they would have scraped music, and that's just stealing. Like, even if you are using someone else's music to machine learn, that is theft. And I think it's also, you know, against copyright laws.
Hopefully, eventually, there will be laws around AI.
Yeah, we need regulation. That's
yeah,
what we need.
I think that would make everybody happier. My question to you is, as a producer, would you ever consider using an AI vocalist over just a human vocalist for the sake of simplicity, or to control it maybe a little bit more?
Okay, so I don't think that right now, I don't think you can control an AI vocalist more than you would be able to give someone instructions on how to actually sing it, first of all. So I think there would actually be a lack of flexibility, if anything, with using an AI vocalist. But maybe that's because I don't know enough about it, right?
Yeah, I don't either, not to even debate.
Right. So what I will say is this, though, like something that I have thought about doing is like using my own voice and my own melodies. But I will say this, and I've done this in the past. I've been using Suno for different things for a while. And one of the things that I do use it for occasionally is when I've got a song idea, and let's say I want some vocals on it, I'll literally write in the lyrics of the vocals and the style and have it add that over my song.
Okay.
So I'll upload like my chord sequence of whatever it is I'm putting into Suno, and I'll write. And I did this on a sample recently where I think the lyrics, like kind of telling me the lyrics, like I could hear them. So I typed them in. It was like ooh, and I literally wrote the ooh, and then do you remember? Like it's just that one line, but like repeated a couple of times in the sample. And so I had it do those vocals, and what it gave me back was interesting. It wouldn't be anything I'd ever just put out. Like I'd never go, oh great, you know, I've got my vocals here, you know, let me put this in my next song. Like they just weren't good enough for that, in my opinion.
What was not good enough?
It wasn't good enough in terms of quality. There was kind of like some artifacts on it and stuff. But what I did do was pay a singer to kind of re-sing that output.
Okay.
And I'm really happy with how it came out. Now, in my opinion, that's a lot different from just just like prompting some stuff and saying, okay, 90 BPM, and look, I made this. That's what I don't like about AI, because you don't know actually who made that. But I feel like to a certain extent, if you're using AI to go, okay, look, I've got this beat and I'm kind of looking for some direction, some vocal ideas, just like maybe some source, and you upload your beat and you get something back that you like, and you kind of build on that. Like when I worked with the singer, she didn't just sing it exactly how it came out, but that was kind of like the catalyst of what it finally ended up being. And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. It's just my experience. Most of the times I've tried to do that, like I've just never really been happy with what it's given me back. So I kind of like went a little bit cold on it, and where I was just kind of really not getting back what I wanted to get. The other thing I want to say is this: I think that we need to be really careful as like a society to where we don't want to start replacing musicians with robots, basically, right? So with my samples, like one of the priorities for me is to work with live musicians. And I feel like even if AI gets to a point where it can do a trumpet solo, I'm not going for that. I don't want music to go in that direction. So I'm just doing what I can to make sure it doesn't. And I think that's one of the dangers. We all need to be a bit conscious of where this could go if we just let it go, if we just go too crazy.
I agree.
I mean, you're a singer, so how do you feel about it?
I love AI as an inspirational tool, like as you mentioned it, because to me, sometimes having some type of AI available is like having a co-writer in the room, or like I never end up, if I ask ChatGPT, hey, what's a metaphor for blah, 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 I never usually end up using exactly like ChatGPT said, but it triggers something in my brain that leads me down some other avenue that ends up being something that maybe I wouldn't have thought of if I didn't have a person there or the AI there to have triggered that connection in my brain. But do I want to turn on the radio and listen to the hottest new AI artist? No. Because I also think, I argue, and I haven't fully thought this through, so it might not make any sense when I say it, but I just argue what actually is art, and is art special because it's something a human made, and is it less impressive if a machine has made it?
Okay, yeah, I love that question. And actually, that was something else. This might seem a bit out there, right? But I feel like my best stuff as a sample maker has always been stuff that I've just sat at the keys and started on the keys, specifically on the keys, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's something to be said about tapping into the universe, into the ether, and getting an idea that is kind of meant for you.
Where does that even come from? That happens to me all the time. It's like a download.
If you start using AI and you start prompting stuff for your like initial ether moment, let's call it that, right? Can you ever really feel properly connected to that song? Because I couldn't. Like I need to, maybe it's an ego thing on my behalf, but I need to feel like, dude, I actually came up with I put that chord sequence together, because no one comes up with chords, but I built that chord sequence, sat on my keyboard, and I built it into this sample. So personally, I need to feel that energy when I make something. If I don't, I'm just not invested in it.
I mean, it's definitely like I can go down a whole rabbit hole on this, because I just think there also just comes a time where you do stuff to have purpose. What do concerts look like? What do shows look like if everything is AI? Is it just a movie?
See, that's what I think we have in our favor as humans, is I just don't, in a live situation where you want to go and see someone sing, or you want to see someone play a guitar, I just don't see replacement for that. I'm concerned about where it's going. I got to be honest with you, like, because I just know that people are going to abuse this thing. I mean, people abuse every type of AI already, but I just thought like music's kind of like sacred, man. You know, art. Could you just leave it out with the visual art as well? It's just like they're putting hundreds of graphic designers out of work, and it's kind of like, can we not do this? Can we just go back to how it was before? And I've had a few good experiences with Suno where it's cool stuff, but if it was rid of AI forever, or
you just totally get even the other tools that don't affect.
Even if it was that serious where it was like, okay, you can't choose which AI you have.
Right, the cat's out of the bag. We can't walk it back now, but
we can have regulations in
that's all we can really ask for. And I think what sucks about being the first, like this is the first time this is happening, is we have to go through all the struggles of being the first. So it's like the lawsuits that trigger a law being made.
I feel like there's a lot of moral stuff that we're going through that isn't completely obvious on the surface. Is it okay for me to use these vocals? Whose vocals are these? Because these are modeled on someone's voice. Do they know it's modeled on their voice? Like, and so all these moral questions where like, you know, we don't have the answers to them.
Overall, the topic of AI in creative spaces is super layered and complex. The unknown consequences of what's to come from all of this new AI technology is really scary, but ultimately we can't let it stop us from moving forward and creating the things that we were born to create. All we can do is hope that people use it responsibly, and hopefully at the end of all this, people choose human-made because they value things that are made by humans. Was there ever a moment you felt like quitting? And if so, what changed, or like what did you do to push through that?
Oh, this is a super short, but there's never been a time.
Never in your life?
I'm in too deep. I'm just in too deep.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so I've been doing this full time for like maybe like 13 years now. And like, you know, I just feel like the longer I do it, like the deeper I get my claws into it. And so, I mean, I just love making music. The only thing I do feel like quitting sometimes is the business side of things. Sometimes, God willing, touch wood, I can stay here. Like I'm not quitting. It's really a blessing. You know, I just feel blessed to be able to do it.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I think I often think of quitting the business side, but like I think I would always love like singing and like just doing simple things. But I think for me, like as time goes on, like it gets so much more complex. At least maybe I make it more complex by all the things I add on, like the business, now the YouTube, and then the whole thing. So I'm like, it's
I think that's a real thing, like where you just put way too many things on the plate.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, all I really want to do is make music, but I have like 7 or 8 other things I have.
There's a lot of things that have to be done. Okay. Have you ever experienced like self-doubt or comparing yourself to anyone?
Yeah, all the time. I'm going to be honest with you. Something that I've done recently, I would say the past like year or so, is I've basically, and this is not me trying to give tips on sort of mental health. Like I cut way down on my social media consumption, like way down. And that for me helped with a lot of the self-doubt stuff, a lot of the comparison stuff. Yeah. You know, right here, I have 2 phones. So one of these phones is a social media phone. This is my everyday phone that I use for everything that has no social media on it at all, nothing. So what I do is I keep this social media phone locked up in a room somewhere. And when I'm going about my day, I do not have it. I do not go and eat my lunch in a restaurant and have my social media phone on. Right. So that is something I used to do before. And I don't think there's many people on planet Earth that are like evolved to be able to say no to social media. I know there's a couple of guys out there that, you know, are really strong-minded about it, but for me it was literally as simple as just putting it onto a different phone that I'm not going to walk around with. So I swear to God, so like some days I don't even check it, like, and then I'll check like 4 or 5 days later and I'm like, damn, you know, what's going on? And I just don't miss it. And the other thing with that is like the screen time used to be insane.
Crazy.
Rihanna, like my screen time, like back in the day, like when I was like hooked, it used to be like 6 or 7 hours a day. And so I was like, that is insane. Like 6 hours. You know, I'm sure that a lot of people that are watching this can relate to like, you know, if you're in like not in a good mental state and like you see the wrong thing that you didn't want to see on social media. I mean, it could be anything. It might not be music related. Absolutely. It can really put you in a dark spot. And it's just like, why am I doing this to myself? And it's all just dopamine hits, and then you're so used to scrolling that when you go back to actually work, like you don't have any dopamine left in your system, so you can't like finish that drum loop or finish that hook because you're just done. On the positive side of things though, like I just think from a business point of view, it's amazing. Like, you know, like you can market on there like you can't really market anywhere else. So, you know, I mean, in an ideal world, we'd have the self-control, but you know, it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, for now, I've chosen YouTube, but I do want to get on TikTok. I told myself I would just start with one at a time.
And there's people that upload to all of them, and I admire that. But for me personally, I would go insane, like checking, you know, 5 minutes.
It's far too much. It's definitely too much for me because I think I tried for 5 minutes and then I think I posted successfully like for 2 weeks. And then I was like, this is not going to work. I don't think I'd be able to do all the platforms without a team. Like just me trying to do it by myself is like a no.
Yeah. I mean, you do need a team to really, I think, efficiently post to all social media platforms properly.
If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching the very first episode of the Self-Made Songwriter series. And if you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments so that I know to keep making content like this. It's very helpful to me when you share your experience. Hopefully hearing Dreamlife's story has proven to you once again that you don't always need to have a major label or a full team and super impressive credits to become a working professional professional in the industry. If anything, he showed us that building smart systems, leaning into your strengths, and staying consistent and running ads is a recipe for success. If you're serious, you can make a living doing music full time. You just have to start and stay consistent.
But before we sign off, or before my computer turns off, can you please share like all your social media links and your endeavors that you're working on?
www.thesamplelab.com and dreamlifebeats.com for beats, and a new website I've recently launched called thewavesociety.com, which is